Hey, what's up people? It's TTC. Today we're going to have a look at the Black Series, Baylan, Skoll and Shin, Haati. These come out, obviously sort of around the same time as the series, which was either last year before. Can't even remember now. Doesn't really feel like that long ago, but at the same time they are taking their sweet time with Season 2. I personally really enjoyed the show. Definitely my favourite of all the Disney Plus series so far. Could be just a little bit biased, mostly because it featured loads of characters that I already cared about. It was very cool for me to see some of the animated style characters actually get played in live action. Especially the guy, I forget his name, who they got to play Ezra. He's absolutely spot on. He smashed it. But let's be honest, Ray Stevenson was an absolute standout. Nobody's going to argue that he did an amazing job of his character. And it's an absolute shame what happened to him. I definitely want to see more of the character, so I'm hoping that they recast. But at the same time, it won't be the same without him. Likewise with whatever the actress's name was who played Shin. I can't remember it. I'm too lazy to look it up right now. I think they did a really good job of setting her up to be somebody quite interesting down the line. You just need to hurry up and pay that off now. So right off the bat, you'll notice that I've got them both stood on just some random McFarlane stands I had lying around. It is absolutely essential for these two because they cannot stand for shit. They both fell over in my display multiple times. And as you can see, Baylan's lightsaber is massive. There's absolutely nothing worse than if it was to fall and land on the lightsaber and snap out peg. Oh. Let's have a look at Baylan first. Get this bit of crap off his skirt. I really love this design that they went with. It sort of makes him look more like an actual medieval knight. It's very cool and sort of regal. It kind of reminds me of the costume that Jon Snow wore at the Battle of the Bastards in Game of Thrones. He's got this sort of green overspray all over the suit, which I don't really remember seeing in the show. It was probably there, just a bit more subtle than this. But I do like it though. A bit of green just sort of breaks up all this dark brown and black. He's got what seems to be like a little green crystal on his belt. Don't really know what it's supposed to be. Maybe like his original lightsaber crystal from when he was a Jedi. It was never really explained though. Hopefully it will be. The face sculpt, I think they did a really good job. It's probably not the best face sculpt they've ever done, but it definitely really does look like Ray Stevenson. Especially like the shape of the hair from the side view. As an artist myself, I think when you're trying to get a good likeness, you need the face shape, the hair shape, the eyes, and the mouth more than anything. I think maybe one of those things is just slightly off, but they are pretty damn close really. You can definitely see him there without really having to use much imagination. I'm not really one for covering articulation, but I think this is pretty cool to point out. As far as I'm aware, this is the only figure that they've actually done this with, in giving him ball joints for his wrists and his hands. So when you plug it back in, you do actually get up and down and side to side, no matter which angle your hand is pointing at. It works like really well, in terms of like holding or pointing a lightsaber in a natural way. I'd probably like to see them do this quite a bit more going forward. It's sort of similar to the way that McFarlane do their wrists, just without a big ugly ball just sitting there. Now the main problem that everybody had with this when it first come out was that he's just way too short. Probably closer to about there. And Ray Stevenson was a massive guy. So I did the same thing that everybody else did. I went and bought myself a Black Series Reva, just to donate the tops of her legs. It's pretty simple. You just pop off Baylan's thighs at the hips, and then remove it at the knees. Replace them with Reva's thighs, and then reattach Baylan's shins again. Obviously, if you look at it like this, it looks kind of stupid. It's got quite feminine thigh shape. But it looks totally fine when you cover it up with his little skirt. It just adds those sort of extra couple of centimetres. Brings him a lot closer to the height that he should be. And Reva was super cheap. I got a brand new for like £8 off Amazon. I have no real use for her other than this. But it was worth it. He definitely looks a lot better now. Having a look at his lightsaber, as I mentioned before, it is massive. Like if you put it next to him, it's nearly the full length of him. Which, you know, he did have a longer lightsaber. I think it's fair to say it's probably just a couple of millimeters a bit too long, but not enough for me to really care. I'm not going to go out and buy a replacement. I think they did a good job on the colour. I know a lot of people have been buying actual orange ones, but to me, it wasn't orange, it was more just like a less red. Don't know specifically what the deal was with that. I'm sure it will get explained at some point. Obviously, like all their lightsabers, you can detach the blade. This one was a little bit stiff, which is kind of scary, but it's better than it being loose. And then you're left with a hilt, which is also quite a long hilt, really. I'm not one of those people who hates things being moulded in softer plastic. I'd rather it be just a little bit bendier than it snap on me. It is a little bit bendy, but it hasn't warped or anything, so it's fine by me. And it hooks onto his belt pretty nicely. Just hangs there without sticking really far out like some of them do. And in terms of holding it, it fits quite nicely in his hand without falling out. You'd have to give it a pretty good shake to completely lose it. And he looks pretty cool, holding it in a two-handed sort of pose. Right, let's have a look at Shin next. To tilt the camera down, she's quite a bit shorter than Baylan. I hate saying this character's name. I think the Japanese sort of influence is quite cool. But me being from Manchester, I just want to call her Shin Haati, or Shin Haati. She's also got this sort of medieval knight influence to her look. Very similar sort of triangular lines that Baylan had on his. I have added just a little bit of dirt and weathering around the bottom, just using a bit of black and brown paint. Just wanted to make it look a little bit less plain and a little bit more lived in. Also just added a little bit more silver to her shoulder pads. Face wise, I do think it looks like the actress. I still can't remember her name, I'm sorry. The hair was a little bit bland when it came, it's just a big chunk of this one coloured plastic. I just added a very subtle wash with a little bit of brown and white paint. You can quite easily see in the show that she's got like sort of darker roots coming through. I think it just adds a little bit of depth, a little bit of realism. If you look really close, you can even see that they've added just a few little moles on her face, which is a nice touch. Wasn't that long ago that they would have just completely skipped over anything little like that. The problem with this face though is the closer you get, I think it's the eyes. She's got sort of a dead-eyed, inflatable doll look a little bit. I don't think it's too bad from a distance though. I know a lot of people have swapped her legs too, just to make her a little bit shorter, because she is a little bit too tall. I'm not as fussed about her though as I was with Baylan. She's close enough. Doesn't really bother me enough to spend any more money. I do however wish that both of them had come with their cloaks though. I know they did a later re-release with the cloaks, but come on. They wore them like 90% of the time in the show. To charge extra for them, just to buy the same thing again with a cloak. Come on. Having a look at her lightsaber, they did a pretty good job of it. It's maybe just a little bit bland, but I don't hate it. These little spikes around the hilt just add a tiny little bit of detail. Again, it's got a sort of orangey, not red colour. I've seen a lot of people get some replacement custom ones in actual orange, but no, I'm happy with this. Detaches at the hilt. And if you have a look, I don't know if it'll show up well on camera, but there is actually little grooves on the blade to stick those little spikes in. And, of course, you can hang it nicely on a belt. I don't know if it's that super secure, but, oh, that's doing pretty well, actually. Look at that. That's more impressive than I thought. She will hold it well enough, but Hasbro seem to have this thing where they give like female Jedi or anyone with a lightsaber really weird shaped hands. Like look at this one, it's really flat, not round enough to be holding onto anything. It will hold, but it's sort of like a weird angle, and it won't stay in very well at all. See, it like doesn't hold enough. The Clone Wars Ahsoka was like exactly the same. And because of the shorter hilt, it's kind of hard to get her to hold it with two hands at the same time. I mean, she's holding it, but it doesn't quite look right. It's not so bad, just sort of hanging down by her side. I'll basically just keep her in this sort of pose. You have no power. Comparison wise, let's bring in Ahsoka and see if we can get her to stand. I haven't got the newer white version of her, but I'm definitely on the lookout for it. She's towards the top of my want list. And then we'll whack Sabine on this side in her live action look. I think they all look pretty cool together. Definitely visibly work as part of the same universe. And height wise, yeah, now that I've changed his legs, it definitely works together accurately. And obviously if you wanted to make these two look like they're facing off, there's quite a nice height difference. Although let's face it, with that massive lightsaber he could stand 12 feet away and just... So there you go, that's these two together. I'm definitely overall pretty happy with them both. I did actually buy the whole lot of figures from Ahsoka, well except for Hera. I don't really know why, I couldn't really buy into the illusion in the show. She didn't look like a green woman, she looked like a woman wearing loads of green face paint. Not ragging on the actress, she did a good enough job, I don't know. She's just the one who I was happy to just leave until maybe I'll find her for a really cheap price. Don't forget to like this video, comment and subscribe. Still a new channel, so any bit of help is really appreciated. I will definitely be posting more and more Star Wars content. Probably have a closer look at that Ahsoka and Sabine at some point. Well, until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.